Tina Turner had 4 sons, 2 she gave birth to and 2 she raised as her own. She also buried 2 of them before she died. Craig, the eldest, took his own life in his mother's home in 2018. Ronnie, her only biological child with Ike Turner, died 4 years later from complications that had been building for years. The 2 stepsons she helped raise during her marriage to Ike went on to build lives in music, but the family they all came from left marks that never fully healed. What those 4 boys actually lived through, what they witnessed inside that house on Olympiad Drive in Los Angeles, and who they became after their mother walked away from Ike Turner with nothing but her name, is the story almost nobody tells when they talk about Tina Turner. This is not the story of the Wicks and the Legs and the comeback tour. This is the story of the 4 young men who watched it all happen from the inside. The world they were born into. To understand the lives of Tina Turner's 4 sons, you first have to understand the woman who raised them and the man she was running from. Anna Mae Bullock was born on November 26, 1939, in Brownsville, Tennessee. Her childhood was marked by abandonment. Her parents separated when she was young, and she was raised largely by her grandmother and various relatives in Nutbush, a small, unincorporated community where cotton fields stretched in every direction, and opportunities for young Black women stretched nowhere at all. She moved to St. Louis as a teenager to live with her mother and older sister. It was there, in 1956, that she walked into a nightclub and heard Ike Turner and his Kings of Rhythm performing. She was 16 years old. Ike Turner was already a figure in the rhythm and blues world, a band leader and talent scout who had been present at the recording sessions for what many historians consider one of the first rock and roll records ever made. He was charismatic and controlling in equal measure. Anna Mae wanted to sing with his band. He eventually let her. By 1958, she was performing regularly with the Kings of Rhythm. That same year, she gave birth to her first child, a son named Craig Raymond Turner. The father was Raymond Hill, a saxophonist in the band. The relationship did not last. Hill was not present for much of Craig's early life, and when Anna Mae began her relationship with Ike Turner, Ike adopted Craig and gave him his surname. Ike and Anna Mae were married in Tijuana, Mexico in 1962. By then, she had already been transformed into Tina Turner, a stage name Ike created and legally owned. He had also begun the pattern of physical and psychological abuse that would define their relationship for the next 16 years. Their only biological child together, Ronald Rennell Turner, was born on October 27, 1960. Ronnie arrived into a household that was already chaotic, already violent, and already on its way to becoming one of the most successful musical acts of its era. Ike Turner had 2 sons from a previous relationship, Ike Turner Jr. and Michael Turner. When Ike married Tina, those boys became part of the household as well. Tina raised all 4 of them together. She cooked for them, got them ready for school, and tried to create something resembling stability inside a home where stability did not exist. The boys grew up watching their mother perform under stage lights and then watching her try to cover bruises the next morning. They grew up in a house filled with drugs, violence, and the particular terror that comes from never knowing what might set off the next explosion. Tina later described the marriage as 18 years of hell. The children lived in that hell alongside her. By 1976, Tina had had enough. During a tour stop in Dallas, after Ike beat her in the back of a limousine, she walked away. She left the hotel with 36 cents and a mobile credit card. She left behind the career, the money, the house, and the name she had been given. She also, in a complicated way, left behind her sons. The divorce was finalized in 1978. Tina asked for almost nothing in the settlement except the right to keep her stage name. Ike kept the houses, the cars, the royalties, and the publishing rights to most of their music. Tina walked into her solo career with nothing but the name Tina Turner and the will to rebuild. What followed for the four boys was a period of adjustment that none of them have ever fully described in public. Their mother was starting over, their father was spiraling deeper into addiction, and the family unit that had held them together, however dysfunctional, no longer existed in the same form. Craig Turner, the eldest son and the quiet grief. He carried Craig Raymond Turner, was the first of Tina's children, born on August 20th, 1958, when his mother was just 18 years old. His biological father, Raymond Hill, was largely absent from his life. Ike Turner adopted him, and Craig grew up using the Turner name. But the question of who his father really was, and what that meant, followed him throughout his life. Craig was the quietest of the four boys. He did not pursue music the way his younger brother Ronnie did. He did not follow Ike into the studio or onto the stage. Instead, he built a career in real estate, working in the San Fernando Valley area of Los Angeles. He was good at his job. Colleagues remembered him as professional, reliable, and private. He did not trade on his mother's name. Most of the people he worked with had no idea who his mother was until after his death. Craig was married once, to someone outside the entertainment industry. Though the marriage did not last, he had no children of his own. He lived alone in a home in Studio City, California, that his mother had purchased. It was a comfortable house in a quiet neighborhood, the kind of place where a man could disappear into routine and not be bothered. What Craig carried internally is something only he fully knew. He had watched his mother endure years of abuse. He had grown up in a household where violence was ordinary. He had seen Ike Turner at his worst and then watched his mother walk away and rebuild herself into one of the most celebrated performers in the world. Whether Craig ever fully processed what that childhood had done to him is a question no interview or biography has ever answered. On July 3rd, 2018, Craig Turner was found dead in his Studio City home. He was 59 years old. The cause of death was a self-inflicted gunshot wound. He had taken his own life. Tina Turner was in France when she received the news. She released a statement a few days later describing Craig as her beloved son and saying that his death had left her with great sadness and shock. She asked for privacy. She did not speak publicly about Craig's death in detail for several years. In her memoir, My Love Story, published in 2018, Tina wrote about the grief of losing Craig. She described the experience of identifying his body at the morgue, of looking at her firstborn child and trying to understand what had brought him to that moment. She wrote that she had scattered his ashes off the coast of California, near her former home, and that she thought about him every day. What Tina did not do, at least not publicly, was offer a full accounting of their relationship in his final years. Some reports suggested that Craig had struggled with depression. Others suggested that the distance between mother and son had grown after Tina moved to Switzerland in the mid-1990s and eventually renounced her American citizenship. Craig stayed in California. Tina stayed in Europe. The physical distance was real, and whatever emotional distance accompanied it remained private. Craig Turner was not a public figure. He did not give interviews. He did not appear in documentaries about his mother. He lived a quiet life, and he died in a way that his mother described as inexplicable. The grief of that loss would stay with Tina for the rest of her life, and it would not be the last time she buried one of her sons. Ronnie Turner, the son who tried to follow her and the body that failed him. Ronald Rennell Turner was born on October 27, 1960 in Los Angeles. He was the only biological child of Ike and Tina Turner together, and of all four boys, he was the one who tried most directly to follow his mother into the spotlight. Ronnie grew up in the same chaotic household as his brothers, surrounded by musicians and drugs and the constant presence of his parents' volatile relationship. But unlike Craig, who pulled away from the entertainment world entirely, Ronnie leaned into it. He inherited his parents' musical instincts. He played bass. He sang. He performed. In 1993, Ronnie appeared in the biographical film What's Love Got to Do with It?, the movie that told the story of his mother's escape from Ike Turner. He played a small role, a musician in a club scene, alongside Angela Bassett and Lawrence Fishburne, who portrayed his parents. It was a strange kind of exposure, watching actors recreate the violence he had witnessed as a child. But Ronnie participated willingly. He wanted to be part of telling that story. Ronnie also formed his own band and performed in the Los Angeles area for years. He played clubs and small venues, building a modest following among people who appreciated his musicianship and his connection to one of rock and roll's most legendary voices. He never achieved the kind of fame his mother had, but he never stopped trying. His personal life was complicated. He married Ike Turner, a French singer and reality television personality, in 2007. The marriage was turbulent. Ike later spoke publicly about their relationship, describing both deep love and significant conflict. They separated and reconciled multiple times over the years. Ronnie's health was a persistent concern. He struggled with his weight. He had ongoing issues with his heart and other organs. In the final years of his life, he was battling colon cancer, a disease that had already taken a significant toll on his body by the time he was in his early 60s. On December 8, 2022, Ronnie Turner died outside his home in Encino, California. He was 62 years old. According to reports, he had experienced difficulty breathing and collapsed. Emergency responders attempted to resuscitate him, but were unsuccessful. The official cause of death was listed as metastatic colon carcinoma, with additional contributing factors including atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease. Tina Turner was in Switzerland when Ronnie died. She released a statement saying that she had lost her son and that the sadness was indescribable. She had now buried 2 of her 4 children in less than 5 years. Ike Turner posted tributes to Ronnie on social media, sharing photographs and videos, and describing him as the love of her life. She also spoke publicly about her frustration with how Ronnie had been treated by his mother in his final years, alleging that Tina had been distant and that financial support had been limited. These claims were never confirmed by Tina or her representatives, and the full truth of the relationship between mother and son in those final years remains private. What is clear is that Ronnie spent his entire life in the shadow of his parents' legacy. He was born into violence. He witnessed things no child should witness. He watched his mother become a global icon and his father descend into addiction and obscurity. He tried to build something of his own in music, but the body he inherited, weakened by years of stress and illness, gave out before he reached old age. Ronnie Turner was not a household name. He was not the subject of magazine profiles or documentary features. He was a man who played bass and loved his mother and died too young, 5 months before she did. Ike Turner Jr. and Michael Turner, the stepsons who stayed in the shadows. Ike Turner Jr. and Michael Turner were not Tina's biological children. They were Ike Turner's sons from previous relationships, born in 1958 and 1959 respectively. When Ike married Tina, those boys became part of her household, and she raised them alongside Craig and Ronnie. In interviews, Tina described the early years of her marriage as a period when she was essentially a full-time mother to 4 young boys while also performing night after night with the Ike and Tina Turner Revue. She cooked, she cleaned, she got the children to school, she did the domestic labor that Ike had no interest in, and she did it while enduring regular beatings. Ike Jr. and Michael grew up in the same house, witnessed the same violence, and carried the same complicated legacy as their brothers. But their path after Tina left Ike was different. They remained closer to their biological father. They pursued careers in music, following in Ike's footsteps rather than stepping away from the industry entirely. Ike Jr. became a musician and producer. He worked in various capacities in the music industry, though he never achieved mainstream recognition under his own name. Michael also pursued music, playing instruments and working in studios over the years. Their relationship with Tina in adulthood was reportedly more distant than her relationship with Craig and Ronnie. After Tina moved to Switzerland, the geographic and emotional separation from all 4 sons seemed to deepen. Ike Jr. and Michael were not frequently mentioned in Tina's public statements or memoirs. They did not appear alongside her at award shows or in documentary footage. This distance is something that Tina addressed indirectly in interviews. She spoke about the difficulty of maintaining close relationships with her children after everything the family had been through. She acknowledged that the trauma of the Ike Turner years had left marks on everyone, including on her ability to be the kind of mother her sons might have needed. She did not apologize for the distance exactly, but she did acknowledge it. Ike Turner Sr. died on December 12, 2007, from a cocaine overdose. He was 76 years old. His death left all 4 of his sons without the father who had shaped their early lives, for better and for worse. The legacy Ike left behind was complicated. He was a pioneer of rock and roll, a man who helped create a sound that changed American music. He was also an abuser, an addict, and a man whose violence drove away the woman who had made him most famous. Ike Jr. and Michael have largely stayed out of the public eye in the years since their father's death. They have not given extensive interviews about their childhoods or their relationships with either parent. They have not participated in the documentaries about Tina Turner that have appeared in recent years. Their stories remain mostly untold, which may be exactly how they prefer it. What can be said is that they survived. They grew up in a house filled with chaos and violence. They watched their father beat their stepmother, and then watched her walk away and rebuild her life without him. They made their own choices about who to stay close to and who to keep at a distance. And they are still alive, which is more than can be said for 2 of their brothers. The weight of being Tina Turner's children. There is a particular kind of burden that comes with being the child of someone who is both iconic and wounded. Tina Turner was one of the most celebrated performers of the 20th century. She sold over 200 million records. She won 12 Grammy Awards. She was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame twice, once as part of Ike and Tina Turner and once as a solo artist. She filled stadiums around the world and became a symbol of survival and reinvention. But Tina Turner was also a woman who had survived nearly 2 decades of horrific abuse. She had been beaten, burned, bitten, and broken in ways that she described in explicit detail in her memoirs and interviews. She had rebuilt herself from nothing, but the rebuilding came at a cost. She left America. She renounced her citizenship. She moved to a gated estate in Switzerland and lived there for the last 3 decades of her life, surrounded by security and stillness, and the kind of peace she had never known as a young woman. Her children did not move with her. They stayed in the United States. They lived their own lives, built their own careers, struggled with their own demons. And the distance between Tina and her sons, both physical and emotional, became one of the quieter tragedies of her story. Tina addressed this distance in interviews, always carefully. She acknowledged that she was not a traditional mother. She acknowledged that the trauma of her marriage to Ike had affected her ability to be close to her children. She said that she loved them, but she also said that she had needed to save herself, and that saving herself had meant putting distance between her old life and her new one. Whether the sons understood this, whether they accepted it, whether they resented it, is something that has never been fully explored in public. Craig never gave interviews about his relationship with his mother. Ronnie spoke warmly about her, but also, according to some reports, felt abandoned at times. Ike Jr. and Michael have said almost nothing publicly about their stepmother in years. What is clear is that the 4 boys grew up in extraordinary circumstances, and those circumstances marked them. They witnessed violence that no child should witness. They were raised by a woman who was simultaneously one of the most famous people in the world and one of the most trapped. They watched her escape, and then they watched her go. The 2 who survived into the present day, Ike Jr. and Michael, carry that history with them. The 2 who did not survive, Craig and Ronnie, carried it until they could not carry it anymore. The grief that bookended everything. Tina Turner spent the last 5 years of her life burying her children. Craig died in July 2018. Ronnie died in December 2022. Tina herself died on May 24, 2023, at her home in Küsnacht, Switzerland. She was 83 years old. The cause of death was natural causes, following a long illness that had included intestinal cancer, a stroke, and kidney failure that required dialysis. In the years between Craig's death and her own, Tina gave a small number of interviews. She spoke about her health. She spoke about her gratitude for her husband, Erwin Bach, the German music executive she had been with since 1986 and married in 2013. She spoke about finding peace in her final years. But the grief of losing 2 sons was visible beneath the surface of those conversations. In one interview, she described Craig's death as something she would never fully understand. In another, she spoke about the difficulty of accepting that a mother might outlive her children. She did not dwell on these losses publicly, but she did not hide from them either. The documentary Tina, released in 2021, touched briefly on the family dynamics, but focused primarily on Tina's career and her relationship with Ike. Her sons appeared in archival footage, young and unguarded, running around backstage while their parents performed. But the adult versions of those children, the men they became and the lives they led, were not the focus of the film. When Tina died, tributes poured in from around the world. Presidents and prime ministers issued statements. Musicians who had been influenced by her paid homage. The focus, understandably, was on her accomplishments, her survival, her legacy as a performer and a symbol of resilience. But the story of her 4 sons is also part of that legacy. They are the people who saw her up close, not as an icon, but as a mother. They are the ones who know what the house on Olympiad Drive really sounded like at night. They are the ones who watched her leave and then watched her soar, and then, in some cases, watched her from a distance as she built a new life that did not include them in the same way. What they left behind. Tina Turner's estate was substantial. She had earned hundreds of millions of dollars over the course of her career, and she had been careful with her money in ways that Ike never was. Her home in Switzerland, her art collection, her rights to her music, all of it represented the fruits of a lifetime of work. How that estate was distributed among her surviving sons and other family members has not been publicly disclosed in full. What is known is that Tina was deliberate about her legacy. She sold her music catalog to BMG in 2021 for a reported $50 million. She authorized a stage musical about her life, Tina, the Tina Turner musical, which premiered in London in 2018 and has since played on Broadway and in cities around the world. Whether Ike Jr. and Michael received inheritances, whether there were provisions for Ronnie's widow, Afida, whether the grandchildren or other relatives were included. These are questions that remain private. Tina was not a woman who aired her family's business in public, and her estate has maintained that discretion. What is public is the music. The recordings of Proud Mary and River Deep, Mountain High, and What's Love Got to Do with It, and Private Dancer. The footage of Tina on stage, impossibly energetic, impossibly alive, singing through decades of pain into something that looked from the outside like joy. Her 4 sons heard those songs differently than the rest of us. They knew the woman behind the voice. They knew what it cost her to stand on that stage. And they carried that knowledge with them through lives that were shaped by her fame, her trauma, and her distance. 2 of them are gone now. 2 of them remain. And the story of Tina Turner's children, the tragedy that ran through all 4 of their lives, is the part of her story that gets told the least and matters the most. What it all means. The story of Tina Turner is usually told as a story of triumph. A woman who escaped an abusive marriage, rebuilt her career from scratch, and became one of the greatest performers in the history of popular music. That story is true, and it is important, and it deserves to be told. But the story of her 4 sons complicates that narrative in ways that are uncomfortable to sit with. Because Tina's escape came at a cost, and part of that cost was paid by the children she left behind. Not abandoned exactly, but not fully held either. They were loved by all accounts. They were provided for. But they were also kept at a distance, especially in the later years. When Tina was building a life in Switzerland that did not include regular visits or holiday gatherings or the kind of closeness that some families take for granted. This is not a criticism of Tina Turner. It is simply an observation about what survival sometimes requires. She had been through something that most people cannot imagine. She had been beaten and controlled and terrorized for 18 years. She had finally gotten out, and getting out meant protecting herself, building walls, putting an ocean between her and everything that had hurt her. Her sons were part of that past. They were not the source of the pain, but they were witnesses to it. And keeping them close may have meant keeping the memories close too. The 4 boys who grew up in that house on Olympiad Drive did not choose to be born into that family. They did not choose the violence or the fame or the cameras or the chaos. They experienced it, and then they spent the rest of their lives trying to figure out what to do with it. Craig built a quiet life and then, at 59, ended it. Ronnie tried to follow his mother into music and died with his body worn out before he reached old age. Ike Jr. and Michael stayed in the shadows, pursuing their own paths without much public acknowledgement of the family they came from. All 4 of them were shaped by Tina Turner. All 4 of them were shaped by Ike Turner too. And the tragedy that runs through all 4 of their stories is the tragedy of what happens to children when their parents' lives are too big and too broken to fully contain them. Tina Turner said in more than one interview that she was proud of her sons. She said that she loved them. She said that losing Craig was one of the hardest things she ever experienced. And then she said very little else about them publicly because that was who she was. Private in her grief, fierce in her boundaries, a survivor who knew that survival sometimes means not looking back. Her sons looked back. They had to. It was the only direction they knew. If you found this story worth your time, consider subscribing for more untold stories of the families behind the icons. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, share it with them. These stories matter, and the people who lived them deserve to be remembered.